Hi everyone! It is such an honor to virtually be with you today. My name is Anna V. Eskamani, and I am the proud daughter of working class immigrants from Iran, born and raised right here in Orlando, and proud to be the State House Representative for District 47 in the Florida legislature. For those who don't know, my district is in the heart of Orange County. So we include downtown Orlando, Winter Park, Belle Isle, Edgewood, but I actually grew up in East Orlando and used to live in Avalon Park and went to Bonneville Elementary School, Corn Lake Middle School, and University High School, and went to UCF. So I really do feel like the entire community of Central Florida is my home. And so, first of all, I just want to say thank you for the invitation and for your incredible leadership, especially during this pandemic. We are inspired each and every day by our women in business, by our women entrepreneurs, and by those seeking new horizons, even among so many challenges. Now, before I get started to kind of talk more about how women in entrepreneurship get engaged in government, I first just want to give a little slice of my personal story because I think it will help add to why I'm here and why this is so important to me. So I mentioned already that I was born and raised in Orlando. My parents were actually both immigrants from Iran, but they came at two different parts of Iran and met at different times in their life in Orlando. They worked at the same donut shop. And my dad was actually really shy to share with folks where he was from for fear of discrimination. My mom, on the other hand, was quite proud of her cultural identity, and she recognized my dad's accent. And so she asked him where he was from. They started speaking Persian, and the rest was history. They made Orlando their home, and I not only have an older brother named Arya, but also a twin sister named Ida. And my parents did everything they could to make a better life for themselves and for their family. My dad went to UCF as well, go Knights, and while waiting tables, became an electrical engineer through UCF, would work on Florida's Space Coast on the weekdays, helping to launch rockets, and on the weekends, he worked as a customer service representative at Walt Disney World to help make ends meet. My mom had a degree from Iran she could not use, so she worked at fast food restaurants and eventually at Kmart. And while she was at Kmart, there were many late nights where my sister and I would be with my mom to help clean the shelves and fold clothes so she didn't get home at a decent time. And, really that was a job for her, and she had incredible coworkers, but it didn't pay well. And she found a lot of her joy in spending time with her family and in expressing herself creatively. And my mom was a painter and a seamstress, and she made incredible clothes for all of her friends, especially for their special days like weddings. Her giving nature is really what inspires me to do what I do every single day. And unfortunately, my mom passed away to cancer when I was about 13 years old. And she fought really hard. I was one of her main caregivers during that time. And everything I do, I owe to my angel mother. And I think for so many women, we have those role models in our lives, whether they're with us in present time or with us in spirit. She really is foundational to who I am and to what I do. And with that said, when I lost my mom to cancer, I made the decision at the tender age of 13 to honor those who are no longer with us through action. So her giving nature became my giving nature. And the empathy that she expressed towards others was the empathy that I would practice myself. And so when I got to high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I mean, I had an itch for politics even when I was 10 years old. I collected petitions in my classroom to keep one of my best friends from being moved to a different lunch table. And though I lost that campaign, it's a reminder that all politics are local. And I was very engaged in the 2000 presidential elections as well. But honestly, when my mom passed away, I kind of lost my way when it came to civic engagement, and found myself getting involved in technical theater. So I'm a big fan of the arts, and I think the arts are a critical component to any strong and healthy community. And then in 2007, I had an incredible AP government teacher, Mr. Christopher Norris, that didn't have to talk about women's issues or immigrant issues or the issues of our indigenous people, but he did. He brought those topics to the classroom, and I felt really inspired that I decided to minor in political science when I got to UCF myself, which eventually became a major for me. And all through my work at UCF as an undergraduate, I got really involved in empowering my fellow students, registering folks to vote, and fighting for the issues that really matter, whether it's supporting our small businesses against the big businesses, ensuring that women and girls have equal rights, ensuring LGBTQ plus equality, racial injustice is eliminated, that we deal with situations like economic immobility to actually create a society where folks can change their stars, ending mass incarceration, you name it, we talked about it. And really my entry back into politics was also advocating for human rights in Iran and here locally, which is what connected me to becoming a Democrat back in 2010 from a no party affiliation voter. So I share that because, I think my journey is so similar to many others. I come from humble beginnings. There's nothing really special about me in the sense that, I wasn't born into wealth. I wasn't born into a political family. I never thought I would run for office before. Like so many women, we have to be asked over 7 times to even run for office. So let me take this as a moment to say, all of you should consider running for office one day. If you haven't thought about it already, please make me one of the 7 to ask you. And with that said, I was very happy, working in political spaces, but not necessarily being that front seat driver. And actually, I worked at Planned Parenthood. And for those who don't know, Planned Parenthood is the nation's leading provider of reproductive health, education, advocacy. My Planned Parenthood story, like that of so many, was as a patient because I had absence-only education in my school. And so I didn't know where to go to learn about healthy relationships, to learn consent, to learn about family planning. That I walked into a Planned Parenthood health center when I was 18 years old by myself, my first ever medical appointment alone, and was met with so much love and kindness, and left with a method of contraception that was right for me. And so I started volunteering at Planned Parenthood, and I was hired there in 2012 and worked there for about 6 years, rising in the organization to serve as a senior director of public affairs and communications across 22 counties. And I was content there. I was doing what a lot of 20-somethings do. I'm now 30, so the gray hairs are coming out. But I was doing what a lot of young people do. I was trying to save money. I wanted to buy a house. I wanted to get settled in, maybe start a family. And then President Trump won in 2016. And, I have respect for every political position out there. For me, I definitely wasn't happy with that outcome. And it was a catalyst to say, you know what, if I'm not happy about it, I should do something. And I do think that the Democratic options that show up as candidates time and time again are no different than their Republican counterparts. Folks don't feel inspired to vote because there really isn't a difference and people feel like their vote doesn't count. So that's really what drew me to decide to run for office, love for my hometown, and a desire to redefine what it means to be a public servant. And so I ran for office in 2017 as a first-time candidate. We flipped our seat in 2018, and then we just won our re-election by even larger margin than in 2018. And I have to tell y'all, not only did we expand our supporter base, we flipped 4 precincts. 2 of the precincts we won actually went to President Trump, which tell me that when you run honest, authentic, and transformational campaigns and you talk to folks every day, not just when it's campaign season, you can build collective power. You can inspire folks to join your beloved community, and you can lead real and meaningful change in your neighborhood and throughout the state. And so that brings me to where we are today. We're continue to face a very difficult 2020. I don't have to tell you that. As women in business, you're experiencing it more directly, I think, than so many others. Our legislative office this past 9 months have been committed to helping Floridians navigate the COVID-19 pandemic, in particular centering on issues like unemployment, small business relief, increased testing, emphasizing COVID-19 safety guidelines so that we can stop the spread and get back on track. Of course, dealing with the affordable housing crisis. I've actually stopped taking a state salary. I've been using my state salary, which is small, but still meaningful, to actually pay for hotel rooms for families that are now homeless or precariously housed, pay for food, pay for just basic needs that Floridians are facing, because we all know that the unemployment system has been not only broken, but the maximum benefit amount is very low. So Floridians are getting anywhere from $125 or less to $275 or less based on what plan they have, and it's really not enough to make ends meet, which is why we've been so keen on lifting up small businesses, fighting for relief dollars, fighting for licensing delays so that you don't have to renew a license when you can't afford it, and just doing our best to center policy discussions on the needs of directly impacted people, whether it's small business relief, housing, unemployment. We want every decision to be centered on those who need support. And I think for women in particular, it's really important to state the obvious, that this pandemic has been damaging for every person, but more so for women and girls. And actually, some folks have unpacked it to be a 1, 2, 3 punch. First, we know that parts of the economy that have been hit the hardest and earliest through job losses are the ones where women dominate. And that includes restaurants, retail, and healthcare. So these are all the fields that have been hit the hardest by COVID-19, and then the fields where women dominate in the workforce. The second punch began as we saw local and state governments across the country begin to lay off even some of their jobs, which is another area where women outnumber men. And then the third blow for many has been closing of childcare centers and a shift to remote schooling. This has made it more difficult for working mothers to pursue their careers, especially if they can't work remotely. It's also impacted dads as well. But we know that it's created even more household responsibilities for parents, which has forced some women to leave the workforce completely. To that point, it's not only pushing women out of the jobs that they held, but it's also preventing many women from seeking new jobs, which is stunting economic growth for women, and robbing the economy of educated and experienced and dedicated workers like women are. We know that women make up roughly half of the country's workforce, and we range from entry-level professional roles to championing environments in the urban, suburban, and rural areas. And many women often care for both toddlers and teenagers. But we have seen the pandemic in particular impact women who are low income and minority women and single mothers. And so with that said, these problems are systematic, right? I want to be clear. It's not like the affordable housing crisis in Florida is new. If you lived in Florida for at least, the last 5 years, it's expensive. That the quality of life is difficult to sustain because the jobs don't pay for the type of rent that we have. And thank goodness, this past November, Floridians approved Amendment 2, which would increase Florida's minimum wage slowly. And obviously I am concerned about its impact on small businesses, but when it comes to these larger companies, women deserve to get paid more. I know my mom who worked at Kmart deserved to get paid more, and the fact that women are still paid less to the dollar compared to their male counterparts is another example of systematic problems we have in our economic structure. And I think it's why so many women leave the typical 9-to-5 job to create their own jobs and to create their own small businesses, because it becomes pretty clear that to succeed in these current economic structures as a woman is very difficult, especially when you're paid less than your male counterparts. And so that brings me to the question, I think one of the main themes of your convening is what role does government play, and where can women get plugged into? So I think it's so important that everyone here get to know their local government if you haven't done so already. So of course, a lot of attention goes to Washington, D.C., and a lot of attention goes towards what's happening in the White House, but I definitely don't want to belittle the importance of local government. Your city government, your county government, and your state government. Everyone here is going to have at least one state senator, one state house representative, which is the role that I serve. You're going to have a county commissioner. If you live in a city, you might have a city council member or a city commissioner. You're going to have county-wide positions like tax collector, property appraiser, and then you're going to have a member of Congress and 2 U.S. senators alongside the president. And so knowing these levels of government and how they can support you and your business are really important. For example, this past week, a small business owner reached out to us because they're trying to open up their business in Winter Park, but DPBR, which is one of the state agencies that provides licenses to allow businesses to open, was moving very slowly in setting up an inspection for this small business to open. So they contacted us. We contacted the secretary of DPBR immediately, and now they're set to have an inspection, and they'll be opening very soon. And those have been some pretty common issues that our office has been able to help with, just getting different executive agencies at the state level, like DPBR, like Department of Health, like Department of Education, to respond to different small business owners or entrepreneurs, to at least get the red tape out of the way and get them on their way to opening up their business. At the same time, we also know that government can play an even larger role in training. And so there are organizations like CareerSource, which help connect talent to small businesses and big businesses, and tries to basically help you provide mentorship opportunities and identify the workforce to meet your needs. And they also do provide training as well to folks that are unemployed who might be looking for ways to strengthen their skills. This also is in relationship with our state colleges. Here in Florida, we have an incredible higher ed system, which includes not only public colleges and private colleges, but also our public state colleges and technical colleges and technical schools that provide rapid retraining opportunities. So if you are newly unemployed or want to strengthen a new skill to help with your small business or to pursue your startup, there are boot camps out there, there are rapid training programs out there, and some that are actually funded by the CARES Act to eliminate any type of economic barrier to pursuing. And so you can't know about these programs, though, if you're not connected to your local government, and to contact your state official and ask, I'm a woman entrepreneur, what opportunities are there for me to identify a capital investment? What training opportunities are there for me and my staff? These are all different opportunities that can be identified by working with your local government. There's also an advocacy piece to this, right? Like what I just described is more of the administrative, accessing programs available. But now let's talk about advocacy. I know one of the questions that came in is, how can small businesses better advocate for themselves in the face of large corporate interests? The reality is that a lot of the influence in places like Tallahassee, Florida state capital, is grounded in corporate interests. This influence comes from very well-paid lobbyists, and there are a lot of folks who lobbying is their profession, and I have much respect for anyone pursuing their career and doing it with respect and ethics in mind. And so I'm not here to draw shade. I think that these professions, they play a part in the system, but it's important to note that the biggest companies tend to have the most lobbyists, which just means they have influence, right? And they're able to make large political contributions to candidates and to different political committees. And so you're competing against that, right? Which is why I take a lot of pride in not taking money from different types of corporations while also lifting up small businesses as much as I can. But there's a way for you to crack through that, by just being an advocate. I mentioned already, getting to know your local elected officials. It's not just so that you can tap into programs available through government, through levels of government, but it's also about you advocating for legislation or ordinances that support you and your small business. And so, if you want to see the growth of pilot programs that provide capital grants to startups, talk to your city and county government, talk to your state local official. If you're worried about the cost of the business rent tax, if you're a commercial renter, talk to your state lawmaker about that. If you want to see LGBTQ plus policies be the norm in the state of Florida, and you want the Competitive Workforce Act to pass, you should talk to your state official. If you care about prenatal and postnatal care or child care or paid family leave or earned sick time. If you care about these policies, then you should talk to your state lawmaker about it. And so just also realizing too that you have so much power to be an advocate, to express yourself and to move policy, I think is such an important opportunity to learn your local power, to express it in that way. And all it takes is setting up a meeting with your local lawmaker, talking to their staff, and expressing the issues that you care about. I think that the state needs to make more investments in small businesses. To give you one quick example, during this pandemic, small businesses have been forced to close and really struggling to keep their doors open in different ways. We saw the state's top 1% of corporations get a tax refund of $540 million. Meanwhile, small businesses saw the state of Florida put out a emergency bridge loan program with only $50 million allocated. And after 38,000 small businesses applied, only 1,000 were awarded. And that's the only money the state of Florida has really put up for small businesses. The PPP program federally was helpful, but of course we also know that PPP tapped out a long time ago. PUA, which I know many of you are probably experiencing because it's designed for self-employed folks. PUA is set to expire at the end of this year, and we all know that without the $600 additional FPUC payments, you can't survive off the weekly PUA program. It's just not enough. And so you need to express yourself by advocating for the programs that matter to you and your community and to your success in our economy. So to know your elected officials, also identify organizations who are advocating for the same and getting plugged into them are all crucial to your health and well-being. And the question of, how do I network with government? I think step one is get to know who your lawmakers and city and county officials are. So a quick Google search. Typically you're going to plug in your address. If you have a voter registration card, usually that card tells you all of your districts. That is for your school board, for your county, for your state ledge. So that's a good place to start. If you don't have it, Google searches will bring you there. Once you get to know their names, follow them on social media. Most elected officials will have a Twitter and a Facebook and an Instagram. So follow them and keep in touch with them. And like I said earlier, find time to meet with them. Virtual meetings are totally, probably the most likely option these days, but set up those meetings and get to know them, because that's a game changer, to put a face to the name and to explain to those folks who you are and what you care about. And then I would encourage you to continue that relationship. Just don't have one meeting, build a transformational relationship where folks know that you're the expert on these issues and they can look towards you when deciding what bills to file and what policy would support small businesses the most. And so with that said, the last thing I'll say as we close the keynote and as you continue on this really exciting program, is that we're fighting right alongside you. And I say that because I think it's important to always amplify directly impacted voices, because you have a voice, right? I don't need to speak for you. I just need to amplify you. And so know that we care about you, that you are deserving, you are valued, and that we got your back. And women are transformational in the world, in society. We know that there is so much poverty around us. We know that there is homelessness right here in Central Florida. We know that many small businesses have put in their entire life savings and are now struggling to stay afloat. Those are problems that are personal to me, which is why we're on the ground every single day trying to stop evictions, whether it's commercial or residential, trying to get relief into small businesses' hands, promoting small businesses however we can, and really, really doing our part to push government programs to be there for you and to not leave you behind. With that said, we also have to ground ourselves in the fact that change doesn't happen overnight, and change doesn't happen with a quick burst of enthusiasm. It happens with a consistent persistence for something greater than ourselves. So you can't stop now. We have to keep going, and we have to think about all the women and girls who are counting on us to fight for their rights, to ensure their economic security, to make sure that they have clean air and clean water, that we don't separate families, that we keep families united, that we end things like the school to prison pipeline, which treat kids like criminals versus being kids, that we empower every type of person, no matter who they love, the color of their skin, how much money they make, what language they speak, who they worship, their disability status, to make sure that no matter what your experiences are, that you can still achieve the American dream. And I know together we can make that world a reality. So thank you again for having me. I hope you have an incredible time together. Stay safe. Happy holidays. And know that Representative Ana V. Eskamani has your back, and we are here to serve. Thank you so much, everyone.